We're still in Isaiah. We're coming, what are we now? The last Sunday in June. So we've got about 3 weeks, next week, the week after that, maybe 4 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks left in Isaiah. We're going to finish Isaiah on the 19th of July at our baptism service. And the sort of tagline, the thing for the 19th of July, Isaiah 66, is a new heaven and a new earth. So we're going to get to celebrate baptism whilst talking about the new heaven and the new earth that's coming when Jesus returns. So we're coming in really still beginning our descent into the end of Isaiah before we go into our family series, our summer series, which we do every year, is going to be starting on the 26th of July this year. And this week, I want to talk to you about Isaiah 62. That's where we are. We're only one chapter ahead from last week. And this really is about God being committed to his people and that he will not stop until his purposes for them are fulfilled. So God is committed to his people and he will not stop until his purposes for them are fulfilled. If you've got a Bible, let's turn to Isaiah 62 together. I prefer reading out of a real Bible, but now I've got to find it. And there we go. So we're going to read the whole of 62, and then we're going to unpack this together. It says, the tagline, the heading is Zion's coming salvation. For Zion's sake, I will not keep silent, and for Jerusalem's sake, I will not be quiet, until her righteousness goes forth as brightness, and her salvation as a burning torch. The nations shall see your righteousness, and all the kings your glory, and you shall be called by a new name, that the mouth of the Lord will give. You shall be a crown of beauty in the hand of the Lord, a royal diadem in the hand of your God. You shall no more be termed forsaken, and your land shall no more be termed desolate, but you shall be called, my delight is in her, and your land married. For the Lord delights in you, and your land shall be married. For as a young man marries a young woman, so shall your sons marry you. And as the bridegroom rejoices over the bride, so shall your God rejoice over you. On your walls, O Jerusalem, I have set watchmen all the day and all the night. They shall never be silent. You who put the Lord in remembrance, take no rest and give him no rest until he establishes Jerusalem and makes it a praise in the earth. The Lord has sworn by his right hand and by his mighty arm, I will not again give your grain to be food for your enemies, and foreigners shall not drink your wine for which you have labored. But those who garner it shall eat it and praise the Lord. Those who gather it shall drink in the courts of my sanctuary. Go through the gates, prepare the way for the people. Build up the highway, clear it of stones. Lift up a signal over the peoples. Behold, the Lord has proclaimed to the end of the earth. Say to the daughter of Zion, behold, your salvation comes. Behold, his reward is with him, and his recompense before him. And they shall be called the holy people, the redeemed of the Lord. And you shall be called sought out, a city not forsaken. Lord, thank you for your word. Thank you for this promise of redemption, Lord. The promise of redemption of your people, Lord. The promise that we will all be given a name. We will all be given an identity. We will all be given a future, Lord, in you. I pray that you, as we were singing earlier, Lord, that you would open our eyes to your wonder, that we would be in awe of you, Lord, of your majesty, of your greatness, of your holiness. Lord, would you open our hearts and minds this morning? Lord, would you help me with what I feel you've led me to prepare? Lord, would you be with us this morning as we look at your word and it feeds us and nourishes us. In your name I pray. Amen. So, Becca and I got engaged just after Becca started university. And we knew that we couldn't afford to get married and survive, like live with just my income. at the time I was working in a call center for an insurance company, and I was sort of on the bottom. I was sort of in the amoeba pit of the rung of the company, and we knew that we couldn't survive like that. So we decided to wait, which meant nearly a 3-year engagement, and that's long. 3 years is long to wait for anything, but it was hard to have patience in those times, because we were thinking we can't really live our lives properly together until we're married. Working in this call center, I had friends that, of course, weren't Christians, and they thought I was mad. Thought I was mad to be getting married at 22. They thought I was mad to be waiting until marriage to have sex. They just thought I was crazy. But we knew that we wanted to do this right, and so it felt like you can't go on holiday together. You're not really meant to do an amazing amount of things alone together. We just thought our life was on hold until we got married, and there was this period of waiting. So not so patient waiting, I might add, but we were waiting for this day to arrive. Yet even before that, God had spoken to me very clearly when I was about 18. So before I met Becca, before we got engaged, before we got married, all of these things, I felt God speak very clearly to me. At New Day, funnily enough, we're going to meet up with the guys later, that God was calling me to ministry, calling me to church leadership. And that, again, was another period of waiting. Another period of longing for something to happen. I can remember trying to sort of even push my way towards it, sort of elbow my way towards what I thought God had for me, yet there was always, God's timing is always better, is always perfect. So it didn't happen when I wanted it to happen. And it was years, in fact. It was nearly 3, just under 3 years until we got married. And it was actually when I was 18, I didn't feel the sort of real pull and call into God's purposes properly of what he'd spoken to me about when I was 18 until I was about 25. Some of that was a mixture of me messing around and not really following what God wanted me to do, but also God's timing and God's preparation and God's nurture and pruning and shaping and molding into what he needed, how he needed me to be, who he needed me to be when the time was right. And so it felt like it was this delayed promise. There was this promise comes at 18. I made the promise to marry Becca when I was 19. And then there's this delayed, it was almost like feeling like there's this delay. There's this, you're just waiting, and you're not waiting patiently, and you're thinking, where is God? What is he doing? Why am I waiting? And this is the sort of thing where on a much bigger scale, but it's where the people of Israel are at, where God's people are at the moment, is these promises have come from God. Salvation is coming, redemption is coming. I'm going to make you this holy people. They've already seen the milk and honey, but there's going to be all of these amazing things that happen, that you're going to build cities, and you're going to be on the mountain, and you're going to drink your wine and drink what you labor for. It's not going to go to other people. You're not going to have to sell it on to other people. But yet they're in this time of delayed promise. They've already had the delayed promise. 400 years in slavery, 40 years in the wilderness, 70 years of exile. There's always been all of this delayed promise. But now God is starting to say, it's coming, it's coming. There's still no time frame on it, but it is coming. You might not realize it in your lifetime, in your generation, but it is coming. And sometimes we wonder, almost, has God forgotten about us? Has God forgotten about me? I would sometimes think that. God, you called me to this and that, and I've tried, and I've strived, and I've tried to put myself in positions where I would be able to fulfill what I think you've called me to, I believe you've called me to, and yet it hasn't happened. Have you forgotten about me, Lord? And it wasn't until I was about 25. So who went to Fusion 2018, Norfolk Showground? I know 2016 was a washout. But 2018, I know there was a number of us that went. I was there as well. And God really got me by the scruff of the neck and said, because I wasn't really walking with God properly either at that time, and it was, come on. And he spoke to me very clearly that I haven't forgotten what I've spoken over you. Now is the time. Get on with it, right? Get on with it now. And that's what I did. And that's what, leading, what am I now, 33? 8 years later, I'm now here, following the purposes of God. And God made lots of promises to his people. Freedom, salvation, raised up, new cities, mountains, all those things purposes. And it seems like at times, whether it be slavery or exile, that God didn't just delay his promise, he had not kept it. If you know that you've got promises over your people, yet for generations before you, there has been slavery, you have been enslaved in Egypt, you think, where is God? Where is this promise? If you've been in the wilderness for 40 years, you would think, where is this promise? If you're in exile, you're thinking, 70 years is what, 2 and a bit generations maybe? No, my father and my grandfather have been in exile. Now I'm still in exile. Where are God's promises? And it talks about us, doesn't it? It hits us in our heart. It hits us where we're at, because the question is, how do we react when God's promises seem slow to arrive? Whether it's the promise of calling, the promise of purpose, the promise of something exciting like being called to a nation, or being called to a city, or being called to another place, having something spoken over you, whether it's a prophecy, someone's given you a verse that really resonates with you and is sort of leading you into something of a new season. When these promises are slow to arrive, when they seem delayed, how do we react? I reacted by, running. Firstly, running away and trying to fulfill those things through my own desires, or trying to elbow my way in. That never works. Elbowing your way in. Or whether it's waiting for a call for an answer to prayer. You've been praying and you feel like God is going to move. There's this promise and you're praying into it, and you're feeling there's just a delay in answer to prayer. And I think Isaiah 62 speaks into this tension between God's promises and our experience, and the people of God's experience. And these times of waiting can be discouraging. They can make us think, where are you, God? We can question God. It can breed disappointment. It can breed discontentment. We get into this sort of rut of thinking, okay, well, it hasn't happened yet, so it's never going to happen. I'm just going to carry on in the lane that I'm in, keep doing this, keep doing that, keep my head down, and then, if it happens, then it happens. If it doesn't, then, it doesn't happen. It can breed bitterness against God. It can breed this sort of this angst and bitter feeling towards God that he hasn't pulled through on what he said and what he's promised us. He hasn't kept his promises. It can make us feel forgotten. And especially if we don't have those around us that are encouraging us, that know about what's going on, that know what you're thinking about, that know what you feel led to, or know what you're praying about, or feel the call of God, or if we don't share those things, we then don't even have any outlet. We don't have an outlet for someone to message you and say, oh, by the way, I was thinking of you earlier and I'm praying for that. Or you are able to share with people and they can walk that journey with you. They can bear that burden with you. The burden of what you feel is delayed promise, is unanswered prayer. It can be a shared burden with our brothers and sisters. And if we don't do that, and we feel that it's radio silence, or we feel that our prayers are hitting the ceiling, that breeds bitterness. And it doesn't just breed bitterness to God, it breeds bitterness to those around us. Because we're thinking, why aren't these people asking me about this? Why aren't these people coming alongside me and helping me and praying for me and being with me? But if we've stayed silent, if we keep it within ourselves, we just breed this bitterness within ourselves. If we don't bring these things to God, bring these things to each other, get it out in the open, and let's walk it through together. I was, when God called me, when God called me to leadership, I was 18. I responded to that call, moved from America back to the UK, and I thought I had it all sussed out. I was like, well, God's done this, so when are you making me a pastor? Like, when is this going to happen? But I was 31 before that actually happened, right? So if we don't, and I didn't do it, I didn't invest my time and my prayers and my energy into sharing with others, into getting others around me to help me through that thing, help me through that calling, help me through what I thought God had called me to, help me through those delayed promises and that delayed answer to prayer until I was about 25. And so there was this 7 years or so of not really doing it properly and just sort of running in circles. And when we feel forgotten, when we feel that things are delayed, when we feel that God is not speaking to us or guiding us, we can feel like we don't have a worth, or we question our identity. We say, God, you call me a son, you call me a daughter, you call me the righteousness of God, you call me the light of the world, yet I feel very dim. I feel very not bright. I feel like I'm not really worth anything. Am I really a son? Am I really a daughter? Am I really the righteousness of God? Am I really a co-heir, a co-laborer with God? And we start to question our identity and our worth, especially if it's a season of waiting and of trial. If we're waiting for something, but everything is okay, everything's going well in life, everything's going well in church, everything's going well in our friendships, then we can just sort of bumble along. We can sort of be like, oh, everything's fine, oh, that thing will come when it comes. But if it's a season of difficulty, whether it's health, relationship, finances, whatever it is, then it feels a bit more like the walls are caving in on us, and we can start to question these things. It's difficult then for us to imagine that God will come through if we're in the thick of it. And when we were in South Africa, we were in South Africa for just over 2 years. And as we were coming to the end of that, we were starting to explore what God may have for us. And this has not really necessarily got anything to do with me and Becca and how amazing we are or aren't. But when you're a young couple who have already lived in a couple of countries, don't have a mortgage and don't have kids, that's a dangerous position to be in our circles of churches, because you get lots of offers. You get lots of people coming through, come and move here, come and be with us, come and lead this, come and join this team, come and do this, come and do this. And so we're in this confusing time of what do we do, where are we going? We were convinced we'd be abroad again. If you'd have asked me at the beginning of 2023 whether I'd ever be in Thornton Heath, I probably would have laughed at you, because I assumed that we would be abroad again. And so we were actually, I don't know if you know the story, but I'm not going to go through it. We were meant to be going to another church in the UK, then that all fell through, and then I had lunch with John, and then the rest is history. But we were in this time, we were, where is God going to send us? And God was not speaking. We were praying, we were seeking God, but what we were also doing is trying to elbow our way to where we wanted to go. God, we want to be abroad. We want to do this. We want to lead a church like this. We want to be in a city like this. And then what happened is nothing happened, because we were trying to strong-arm God into what, we put God in a box. And as soon as we relinquished this perceived control we had over where we were going to be and what God was going to speak into, God spoke very clearly. And you don't realize, and it wasn't until I started to come here and visit and speak to the guys and to meet some of you, sit in the Joseph Centre with about 13 of you and get peppered with questions, which was fun. And I wasn't given, Ian gave me about 3 questions in preparation, but there were a lot more than that. Be peppered with questions. I started to realize, and I've said this a few times here before, but I'll say it again, is that you never know what God is preparing you for until you're doing what God has prepared you for. So I thought God was preparing us to be abroad. We had, to be in a certain place with a certain demographic and in a certain area and doing a certain thing. Yet when we arrived here, it was, this is what God has been preparing us for. It was so clear that God had called us here. But in those times of waiting, you question everything. You question where God is. You question your identity. You question, does God really care about us? Does he care about, one random couple from Biggin Hill in the UK who decided to move to South Africa and now feel that God has called him to this. Does he really care about that? The answer is obviously yes, but God's people are going through uncertainty, as we all do. They're waiting for this redemption, for this promise, and have been for a long time. Well, we said, haven't we? 400 years slavery, 40 years wilderness, 70 years exile. But God, in this chapter, starts, through this word that he's given Isaiah, starts to speak a little bit differently to his people. And it starts, doesn't it? God does not stay silent. He goes, I will not be silent. God will speak loudly and show the righteousness of his people. So that's when we come to faith, when we come to Jesus, when we are clothed in his righteousness, we are then to, I was talking to the 15 plus guys about this on Friday. We are then told to, and that we reflect Jesus, we reflect the light of God. God says that the nations will see the righteousness of God's people. That this is so bright, that this is so loud, this is such an impact that it won't just impact God's people or the people around them or the nations around them, it would impact the nations, the whole world. And the work of God is meant to impact not just, and it says this in the chapters, it's not just meant to impact God's people, but extend to all nation and all kings. That not just the people, but the rulers will know. That the kings and the rulers and the principalities will know that this is God's people, that this is God's righteousness, that God has spoken loudly and clearly and brightly. That they would see God has used this little nation of people, this little group of people, and he has blessed them with freedom from slavery, with victory over their enemies, and has provided them a land to inhabit. But most importantly, he has clothed them in righteousness. He has given them a way to righteousness, given them a way to cleanse them of their sin, even if it is temporary and they have to keep going back and back and back and doing it again. He's giving them a way of atonement. And God is committed to his people. God is committed to us. And he has not given up on them. He has not given up on us. He is not, and we're reading in the context, he has not given up on his people despite 500 odd years of disobedience and sin. And God declares their righteousness. God is committed to act on their behalf. God loves his people so much that despite what they have done, despite what they still do, despite their disobedience, despite their vain worship, despite their joining with other nations for protection and for help instead of leaning on God, he acts on their behalf. He covers them with righteousness. Despite our sin, despite our guilt, despite our shame, God acts and sends his Son in our place to cover us with righteousness. And he gives them a new name. Not forsaken, not desolate. And he delights in his people. No longer forsaken, no longer desolate, no longer alone. They shall be delighted in. What an amazing phrase to be delighted in. When I was writing this, I was thinking about how I look at Ezra. I delight in Ezra. I look at him, and even when he cries, I still delight in him. But when I look at him and he's smiling and he's happy and he's running around or crawling around and he's doing all these things, I delight in him. I thank God for him. I want to pour all of my love, everything I can, onto him. And that's how God sees us, exemplified, amplified to the ultimate, to the eternal. God looks at us and delights in us and loves on us and wants to pour his love on us, and he does. And he pours out his salvation. He pours out his Son's blood on us. They shall be delighted in and called married. Anyone know the Hebrew word for married? Beulah, right? Don't worry, I'm not going to try and do some theological gymnastics and try and get us in there, get Thornton Heath in there. But they are called Beulah. Right? They are married to God. Right? They are married to God, and all of the commitment and the love and the sacrifice that is attached to that flows in that relationship. God will delight and rejoice over them as a groom delights and rejoices in his bride. Now, my memory hasn't served me very well, which it often doesn't, because I was meant to send Joel a picture of Becca on our wedding day. And it's my favourite picture of Becca, and it's one of my phone screensavers, but it's not going to be there. So, but it's this. I had this when I was writing this. I was thinking, this reminds me of the feeling of taking a look down the aisle as Becca was coming down the aisle, and we got married in an old C of E church, and I was standing there, and I didn't want to look because I wanted to wait until she was closer. And then the vicar says, "You can look now." And I turned around, and as soon as I looked, I couldn't look anymore because it was overwhelming me, and I was like, "Oh no! If I look now, I'm just going to become a mess. So I won't do that." But she was coming down the aisle. And I looked, and it was just this amazing moment of realizing that I was going to be married to this wonderful, beautiful woman. And God commits to marrying his people. He's committing to marry his people, that he, even though as his people come down the aisle, as he has seen as they're walking up there, he's seen the guilt and the shame and the dirtiness, the scum of the soul. He's seen what they've done and what they will do. He knows that they will constantly turn back and disobey him, worship idols, try and gratify their flesh. He is still committed to marrying them. He does not leave them at the altar. I couldn't have left Becca at the altar. I was like glued to where I was. Partly nervousness, partly because I didn't want to turn around anymore and see her continue walking down. But Jesus is committed to all believers in that same way. He stands there the same way as God, not the same way as me, looking and not looking. But Jesus, despite the error and the sin of us and the wretchedness of our soul, he stands there, he acts, and he goes to the cross to marry his people, to bring his bride to himself. And this is what Jesus does for us, is he gives us this identity, he gives us this future. As Becca became not Rebecca Nen, she became Rebecca Brown, we come and we become sons of God, we become daughters of God, as we are married to Jesus, what we'll see at the wedding feast of the Lamb, this bride, us, those that believe in Jesus, that are presented to God on the day that Jesus comes again, or I don't know how time works, but we're going to be presented to Jesus by God as the bride, as this bride, as look what I have gathered for you. Look what I have given to you, this perfect bride from every tribe, from every tongue, from every nation. She is yours. And that this is a reward for Jesus. This is the joy that was set before him. This is what I believe. The joy set before Jesus as he went to the cross was the bride of Christ. It was not just the worship and the honor and the glory of eternally being called holy, 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 worthy, worthy, worthy. It was the joy of the marriage to the bride. It was the joy of you and I in eternity being with him, feasting with him, worshipping him in a new heaven and a new earth. And that's Jesus' reward for his obedience to the Father, for his obedience to the plan set before the beginning of the world. that he would come and he would die in our place. He would live that righteous, perfect life. He would die that criminal's scum death in order that we might not be sinful, but that we would be sinless one day, that we would become the righteousness of God, that we could have our relationship reconciled, that we could come before God and have relationship with him eternally. Because God's commitment is active, it's not passive. And he doesn't wait for things to happen. He steps out and he does it. God has set watchmen over his people, within his people. There are watchmen within us. There are watchmen over us, watchmen over the people of God. Prayer warriors. This is my interpretation. This is, based on commentaries I've read and my interpretation. This is prayer warriors, watchmen over the church. That those prayer warriors, those people that do not cease to pray for God to move. There are people in this church, I'd like to think myself being one of them, every morning when I pray for you and pray for this church, that there are people in this church that pray every day for this church, that pray every day for you, that pray every day for Thornton Heath, that as they are watchmen and women over this church, over this town, that they pray ceaselessly to see God move, to see this church mature, to see this church become what God has it to be in this season. And God encourages ceaseless prayer in this passage, for constant communion with God, talking to him, praying to him, petitioning him, imploring him to move in what we want to see happen in our lives in this church. Jesus encourages us to persevere during prayer. During times of calling on God, ask, he says, seek and knock. And it's not a Greek lesson, but this is done in the continual tense, right? That it's not just ask once, just seek once, just knock once. It's keep asking, keep seeking, keep knocking. That there's this ceaselessness to praying, this continual nature to prayer. Give him no rest. Give God no rest. We know God doesn't sleep and he doesn't slumber, but God is inviting us to take him at his word and flood the heavens with prayer. To flood the throne room with prayer so that he can't rest, metaphorically, of course, but he can't rest. So he's just dealing with, I remember, you ever seen the film Bruce Almighty? And he gets the computer to read all of God's prayers, and he just says yes to everything. And then he meets someone a bit later, and she prayed to win the lottery, but she only won $16 because loads of people had prayed to win the lottery, and he said yes on every prayer. We want to flood the flood the throne room of heaven with prayer. What an invitation! What an invitation from God to say, talk to me so much that I can't rest. Bring me so much that you want to see happen. Bring me your hurt. Bring me your shame. Bring me your guilt. Bring me your hopes and dreams and futures and expectations of me, and flood my throne room that I cannot rest. God is listening. God is acting for us. Charles Spurgeon said about Isaiah 62, a restless Savior calls upon his people to be restless and to make the Lord himself restless, to give him no rest till his chosen city is in full splendor, his chosen church complete and glorious. God will not rest until the bride is complete, until the church is complete. Until everyone who will call on the name of Jesus has called on the name of Jesus. Until every tribe, until every tongue, until every nation and island and people group have heard the gospel and have had opportunity to respond. And this is also an invitation to participate in what God is doing. God's people here in Isaiah 62 is to see the redemption of Israel, to participate in the redemption of Israel, to pray for it, to long for it, to ask for it of God, to flood the throne room of God, to flood the temple of God with the prayers of Please redeem your people. Please redeem Israel. And for us now, it's to see the redemption of Thornton Heath. It's to see the redemption of Croydon, to see the redemption of London, to see the redemption of the UK, to see the redemption of the nations. Those who garner shall eat, and those who gather shall drink, God says. As we partner with God in his purposes for this world, we share in the riches and the glory of it. How amazing is it when we hear that, we're going to have a baptism service on Sunday the 19th? What does that fill us with? It fills us with faith and with joy and with expectation that someone's come to Christ. Someone wants to be baptized. Someone's responding to the call to believe and be baptized. That stirs us to want to see it happen again. When we get good reports from Alpha, the conversations we're having, God is moving. It stirs us. God, do it again. Do more. We get to participate in this. And then what happens is when there is fruit, we get to eat of it. We get to eat and drink of the fruit and the glory that is coming from God moving in our town and in our nation and beyond. When we hear things from our brothers and sisters in the nations, when we give into last year, when we gave from Open Gardens for Dinesh in Pakistan to get a car, and then he sends us pictures of his car. We're like, yes, come on, this is great. This is us drinking in the glory and eating, sharing in the eating of this glory. We share in the riches of what's happening. And this is part of the family of God, the richness and of relationship and of culture. Think of this church, right? Sorry if I miss a nation out. If I miss a nation out, shout at me, right? We've got Brits, right? We've got Jamaicans, we've got Ghanaians, we've got Nigerians, we've got West Indians, we've got Grenadians. Is that right? Thank you, Len. We've got anything I'm missing? Grenadians, we've got Indians, sorry, Drew. And Albanians. What else have we got? Sri Lankans, sorry, Anita and Ravi and Shirley. Guyanese. Anything else? Ugandan. Yes, got it. There's already this rich, you only have to come to the church barbecue, 22nd of August? 22nd of August, church barbecue. And we're gonna eat in the glory and riches of our culture, right? Of this town. But there is a richness of relationship and culture, not just in this church, but in this city, right? In Croydon, in London. There's a richness of culture in the nations. In this nation, there's a richness of culture and relationship in the nations. And that's what we get to be part of. That we are first and foremost for Thornton Heath. But we also get to share in the riches of what God is doing in the nations. When we hear about Pakistan, when we hear about what's going on in Africa, or hear about what's going on in the Far East or America, we get to drink and eat and be happy and be joyful and share in the riches of what God is doing in our family of churches, in the worldwide church. And together we share in the fruit of the advance of the kingdom and of the gospel. And all these things that we hear at home and beyond, they give us confidence in God's promises. God's promises are not delayed for us, right? There are some promises personally, right, that are delayed for us, the now and not yet. But the promise that God is moving and saving and gathering and plundering Thornton Heath for himself is now. That promise is now. And the call is, God gives us a call to participate in it. And all of this prayer, all of the prayers, every penny, every prophecy, every tea served, every alpha conversation, every toy given to a child at Bouncers, every Keep Fit class, all of these things, every Friday youth 15 plus Bible study, all of these things move towards a glorious outcome as we flood the throne room of heaven with prayer. Love if the band could. We're going to respond with one or two songs. For God's people, redemption is promised. Redemption's promised. Right? God speaks to his people and he says, I will redeem you. You will see the fruit of your labor. You will see all of these things. You will see the cities rebuilt. You will see the the mountains. You will eat of what you've labored for. You will drink of what you've labored for. But for some of those, they're not going to see it in their lifetime, but they will see it when they go to be with the Lord. God is coming because God has promised redemption of people. Right? We don't know who. We don't know who God has come and chosen to believe in his gospel. But all we do is blanket Thornton Heath. We blanket London. We blanket the nation. We blanket the nations, every tribe and tongue, with the gospel, with the opportunity to turn to God and believe, because he is coming. Jesus is coming, and he has come, and he's gathering the nations to himself. We're talking about this all through this series, is that God is not just the God of Israel. This is what he's trying to tell them. I'm not just the God of Israel. I'm not just the God of this people. I'm the God of the nations. The islands will come to me. The islands will respond to me. God is out there redeeming the lost. There are people in our town, there are people, I believe, even on this crescent, that God is starting to whisper to, that God is starting to speak to, that he's guiding them, those that don't know him, guiding them toward those who will tell them the gospel. Whether it's seeing the A-frame out there and thinking, what's all that about, coming in? Whether it's seeing the 50 plus and coming in. Whether it's bouncers, whether it's Alpha, whether it's just walking in and asking what we're up to and who we're doing or what we're doing. Seeing someone in Costa, seeing someone in Tesco, seeing someone in the high street. God is starting to lead those who don't know him towards himself in this town. Softening the hearts and bringing them to life to believe in what his son has done. He is gathering a holy people, a redeemed people, one that has a new identity, one that has a new reputation, a new calling, a new purpose, a call to be hopeful, to be a hopeful people, a praying people, a people who persevere in prayer and in trial, a people confident in God's promises. Now, I feel with some of the things I've said this morning that there are one or two of us that are living with some delayed promises, that are feeling that God spoke to me about this, or I feel called to this particular thing, and it feels like God's not talking anymore, that God is no longer leading me into this thing, that God has spoken and forgotten. And if that's you, I'd love for you in this time of worship to tell God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I've believed that you've delayed your promise, that I believe that you're not speaking. Lord, come and speak to me now. Come and reignite this fire and this passion, this zeal for what you've promised me, for what you've called me to do. If that means you need to come and seek prayer from the ministry team after, come and do that. That would be great. But let's respond to God. Let's lean into what he's promised us, the promise that he is coming and redeeming people for himself in this town and beyond. But also he's speaking to us, calling us to flood his throne room with prayer, but also calling us to rely on him, to lean into his promises, to not stay passive, but to be like him and be active in what God has called us to do in this church and beyond. Let's stand and let's respond to God.